G'day. If any Australian axe is synonymous with the Tasmanian pattern, it would have to be Hytest. If you are in Australia and you're into axes, you've probably got a few Hytests in your collection. If you're into axes and you're not in Australia, then you very likely want to get your hands on some. So I've posted a few videos featuring Hytest axes, and being an academic, sometimes I can't help myself. I've got to drop in little factoids all the time about, the age of an axe, when it was produced, that sort of stuff. And I've had a few people ask me how it is I know the things that I do. There is a lot of information out there about Hytest axes. There's a lot of people that have been into axe collecting for quite a while and know a lot about it and have generously shared that information on various platforms. There's various things that you can access online to find out about it. There are some things that we can be pretty sure about with these axes. There are some things that we can only really speculate on. Everyone's going to probably have different opinions around some things, and I just sort of figured a good place to start might be to put a little video together. At first I thought I probably wouldn't have enough axes to make a good story. I'm into vintage tools, especially axes, but I've always tried to, at least from the start, focus on axes that I actually use. But, and I'm sure this is the case for a lot of people, I soon discovered that it is a very slippery slope from user to collector. And before I knew it, I had way more rusty axe heads kicking around than I do ones that I actually use. And that's okay. So I've always had a bit of a soft spot for Hytest axes. I think it was a Craftsman that was the first axe I got that kind of got me down this axe journey. And over the years, I seem to have amassed quite a few of them, in addition to a range of other Hytest tools, because the company didn't just produce axes. And while I don't have a comprehensive collection, I don't have every single model, not by a long shot, I think I've got enough to sort of work through the key phases of the chronology of these axes. So that's what I want to try and do. So just before I continue, it's important for me to acknowledge that a lot of the information that's going to appear in this video is stuff that I've learned by paying attention to others on various platforms, people who've generously shared their knowledge of these axes over the years, and I've really learned a lot. So at the end of this video, I've got a list of acknowledgements. If I've missed anyone, I'm sorry, but you know who you are, and cheers, thank you. Hopefully I haven't mucked too much up. If I have, please feel free to add comments and we can keep the discussion going. So how do we actually know what we know about the story of Hytest axes? Various sort of accounts have appeared over the years, bits and pieces of the story. I think probably the best one that I've seen is a written account that was put together by Josh Curtis a few years ago. Josh shared that on the Australian Axe Forum Facebook page, and I found it really useful with regard to sort of key events in the history of Hytest axes. I also think Mark Stone's recent video on Axes of Oz is really good, and it's helped reduce a lot of the noise around certain parts of the story. Things like company records, documents, those sort of things are really handy for sort of anchoring key parts of the story around. Beyond that, it's kind of like mainly catalogues, advertisements, wood chopping results, any of that sort of stuff that can be reliably dated. So newspaper articles are really great in that kind of context. Those are generally the most reliable pieces of evidence that we can use to construct a sort of timeline for things. I think, though, like sometimes claims that are made by manufacturers in advertisements need to be taken with a bit of a grain of salt, and it's usually worth sort of checking those against other sources. Righto. To say that the origin of the Hytest Axe and Tool Company isn't complicated would be an understatement. It's messy and hard to understand. It's taken me a while to get my head around it. I'll do the best I can to kind of cover key parts of the story. A lot of it's been well covered by Mark Stone on Axes of Oz, and Josh Curtis's document also goes through a lot of it really well. But the background to it is that, during almost the first half of the 20th century, 1910s, 1920s, and the 1930s, the market for Tasmanian pattern axes in Australia is dominated by overseas companies. All the axes are imported. So you've got axe company and tool companies like Fayette Plum of the US, Kelly Axe and Tool Works of US and Canada, and then in the UK or in England you've got Braids and Elwell. Pretty much all the axes that are available, bar a few Swedish ones, come in from those countries. There are various tariffs and things that those manufacturers had to work around. It was much easier to get axes into the Australian market if they were getting produced in Commonwealth countries. So you see a lot of manoeuvring with regard to that. But during that whole time, there are no Tasmanian pattern axes, an axe pattern that was invented in Australia. There were none of them being produced in Australia. Now, all that changed with the outbreak of World War II, because all of a sudden the importation of things like axes and tools stopped, and a lot of primary production needed to focus on war efforts. So almost overnight, notwithstanding problems that were faced during the 30s from the Great Depression, but overnight, with the onset of World War II, the supply of felling axes in Australia pretty much came to a halt. And that's really where the story of Hytest axes begins. Now, the complication in all this is that, as you'll see when we start looking at the axes, Hytest axes, their origins are sort of interwoven with the story of a tool manufacturer in Australia, W.H. Plum. So this is William H. Plum, who was originally a Kiwi, moved over to Australia, started pretty much in a shed making tools around 1911. And the story of that company, it has a lot to do with the origins of Hytest axes, but Hytest axes also have their own story that is a little bit separate. And at a point around 1939, those two companies sort of diverge from each other, and that's where we need to follow the axes, and the tools kind of keep going. So initially I thought I would put this entire Hytest axe history and chronology into one video, but I soon discovered there's so many interesting parts to it that the material I had, it was starting to blow out into something a bit stupid. So what I thought I'd do, I'm going to break it up into a series of much more digestible chapters. This is the first one, titled The Journey Begins, and the journey will continue. There is more to come.